Good evening and welcome. First of all, we're on first time live on Instagram. So in addition to YouTube and Facebook, I'm excited to be starting to stream on Instagram. Second of all, we don't have the regular laptop here, and the quality of the YouTube may be a little bit off. And we also have a smaller group than usual, so I'm going to use the opportunity to do this as a discussion. So really feel free to interrupt me with any questions you have. Questions from the audience as well. You're welcome to those that are watching live. You're welcome to ask questions, and I'll try to address them. The topic today is the idea of criticism. What to say, what kind of criticism to give, when to give criticism, and how to do it correctly. Okay. There's an interesting phenomenon. They say parents, they teach their children to speak, and children teach their parents to be quiet, especially adult children. Okay? You want to give advice. You don't want your children to make the same mistakes that you've made. You want to help them. You really mean well, but somehow they're not interested in being told exactly how to live their lives or how to raise their children or how to make money decisions in so many different areas. And the parents decided, or very often have no choice, and they say, no, I'd rather be quiet. They'll learn from their own mistakes, and at least we'll have a relationship instead of me trying to correct them. But does Torah have a view? And the truth is, Torah has a view on everything. And Torah is a guide, as we've said many times. It's not just a book of laws or a book of history. The real definition of Torah is from the Hebrew word hayra'ah, which means lesson. It's a teaching. It's guiding us how to live our life. And it's guiding us how to live our life for all times. Not 3,000 plus years ago when it was given to us only. And not only for people living in Israel or certain types of people. It's for every single person in whatever generation you live, whatever type of occupation you have, any age you're at. Torah has information, messages, lessons, and really guides you through life. So we can take any topic and find the answer in Torah and what God's approach is. But let's talk about criticism. And the reason why I want to talk about criticism today is because we began a new book, Devarim, the 5th book. And in this book, Moshe, for lack of a better term, criticizes the Jewish people. He criticizes a lot. He's going to pass away, and he knows that. Moshe lived 120 years. And before he passes away, he's giving a long speech. It's probably the longest speech that any rabbi ever gave, several weeks. You know the joke about the rabbi, the president, and the chazan, the cantor. We're going to raise money for the community in the middle of the summer. And they're traveling, they're going. And somehow on the ship that they were on, some pirates took over. They captured them. They realized 3 Jews, a rabbi, a cantor, a president of a synagogue. That's it. And they told them, listen, I have one final wish and we're going to end your life. So the cantor says, okay, please, before my final wish is, I prepared a beautiful rendition of the prayer for Yom Kippur. And now I'm not going to be able to do it because you're ending my life. My final wish is, please, allow me to sing. I want to do that rendition. Okay, we could allow you to do that as a final wish. Rabbi, what's your final wish? He says, my final wish is I prepared a sermon, a very beautiful, long, great sermon. I want to be able to say this as my final wish before you take my life. I can handle that. They turn to the president. They say, President, what's your final wish? He says, take me first. Moshe is giving the longest sermon, really, to the Jewish people. And he's going to criticize us. And he tells us about things that we've done. He actually doesn't say it straight out, but he uses hints. He references all the places that we were when we traveled. And he says, or some of the places, for example, Di Zahav. Okay, gold. Why? We were in the golden place. There's no place called gold. I mean, we call America sometimes paved with gold, or they used to, until they came here. But we call it gold. Why is Moshe calling gold? Because that's the place that we sinned with the golden calf. And he's alluding to the fact that we made a terrible mistake just a few weeks after we left Egypt, after we received the Torah from Hashem, and we heard from God Himself, don't worship idols, we already messed up. And He talks about the times that we complained to Hashem, the times that we mistrusted, the times that we gave up and said we want to go back to Israel, to Egypt, and all different stages when we said we don't want to go to Israel because of the spies. And Moshe is criticizing the Jewish people for what they've done. The question is why? He's about to pass away. Why would this be the last interaction? Say nice things, end on a good note. You're not going to talk to them anymore. They're going to be on their own leaderless, not leaderless because they're going to have Yeshua, but they're not going to have Moshe. Why would you take them and end with such a harsh way? That's question number one. And question number two, why now? The golden calf was 40 years ago. If you had a problem, speak up. You asked God to forgive us, which He did. And now, 4 decades later, you're coming and you're saying, how dare you? Why did He do that? Why did He behave this way? This is wrong. It's like couples that argue. In the middle of an argument, and somehow one of the spouses remembers something that the other one did 25 years ago. Remember at that time you didn't pick me up? Or the first time we met, Why now? Why is it coming up? Moshe's passing away. He's talking to the Jewish people, and he's remembering the things. You know the best way to never to forget your anniversary? Forget once. But Moshe says to the Jewish people things that they've done wrong 4 decades ago. Now, so let's look at the Jewish view on criticism in general and understand why Moshe is doing what he's doing and why now. There is actually a mitzvah that if you see someone doing something wrong, speak up. You see your friend about to rob a bank. Not long ago, they robbed the bank here, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I don't think they caught him. But in any case, you see someone about to rob a bank, you pull them aside and say, listen, don't do it. It's forbidden. You see someone that's about to make a bad decision, a bad move, to do something that's wrong. Tell him. Why should you tell him? Because we're responsible for one another. And you see someone going down the wrong path, help them. Guide them. Tell them this is wrong. Don't do it. Not only that, but if you don't, then it's considered as if you've done that act. If you didn't try to protest, if you didn't try to stand up and say what you're doing is wrong, we consider it as if you actually committed that sin. And the Talmud tells us stories. One story is about a great sage, Eliezer Ben Azaria. He was a leader of the Jewish people during his time. Very prominent sage. And there was a discussion. You know, we're not allowed to carry on Shabbos. When you go outside on Shabbos, unless you have an enclosure to your backyard, or some cities have a full eruv, it's called an enclosure. Jerusalem, the old city, has a wall. But in public domain, just to walk around on Shabbos with stuff in your pocket or to carry things, to bring things, is a biblical prohibition. You're not allowed to do it. What about your animal? You can't make your animal work on Shabbos. But could your animal walk outside with a certain type of ornament on their head? It's a decoration of some sort. Can the animal, technically carrying, is it allowed to? And there's a discussion in the Talmud. This Rabbi Eliezer says you're allowed to. But the other sages said, you're not. Now the halacha is, the rule is, that majority rules. So if there's an argument among sages, if something is permissible or not, then we go according to the majority. So here you have this Eliezer Ben Azaria, who is of the opinion, we don't follow it, but he's of the opinion that you're allowed to have your animal go out with this ornament on their head, on Shabbos. He walks out one Shabbos afternoon, and he sees his neighbor taking his bull out for a walk or whatever. And that bull has this ornament. He didn't say anything to him because I'm of the opinion that you're allowed to. I won't because the sages said no. And I'm a sage, but we go according to the majority, he says. And it's not me, it's my neighbor. He didn't say anything. And the Talmud says that he felt so bad, he was fasting to God. We don't do this today, but he was fasting to be forgiven for this sin, if you will, of not telling his friend that having your animal go outside with an ornament on top on Shabbos is prohibited. His teeth became black, the Talmud says, from the amount of fasting that he did. He probably ate only in the evenings. He fasted a lot. So you see that not telling someone else something is considered to be negative. I'll give you another example, a much harsher example. On Sunday, we actually have a fast day, one of the few fasts that we have, Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. It's the commemoration of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. The temple was destroyed. Now, before the temple was destroyed, the first temple, we commemorate both temples' destruction. But this story happened before the destruction of the first temple. Before the first temple was destroyed, God told the angels, I want you to go down to the world, go to Jerusalem, and take paint and paint the letter Tuf on the foreheads of all the righteous. And this way, when the angel of death comes down, when the destruction will begin, he'll know that the sages don't kill them. Because a lot of people are going to be murdered, unfortunately. It was a terrible, terrible tragedy. And then take blood and paint on the foreheads of all the wicked the letter Tuf, and the angel of death will know those are the wicked, they have to go. As soon as Hashem said this, Midas Hadin, the midah, the attribute of judgment. Okay, let's just say it's an angel whose job is to create balance and make sure things are fair and keep free choice, check. So he comes to God and says, one second, why the bad guys are going to be killed but not the good guys? So God said, well, they're good guys. Why should they be killed? And the angel said, well, they should have told the bad guys not to sin. And they didn't. So Hashem said, not so fast. They wouldn't listen. The sin of the first temple destruction was idol worship, adultery, things, they wouldn't listen. So the angel said, God, you know that. The sages didn't know that. They should have tried. And the fact that they didn't try, and if God said they wouldn't listen, he knows a thing or two. And okay, so they also ended up getting killed. And unfortunately, they were the first to be killed in the destruction. So you see another story that when you don't tell someone something that they're doing wrong, you don't speak up when someone is about to make a grave mistake on purpose, you carry a certain level of responsibility for that. You can't just ignore. You can't sit by idle and say, it's not me. Whatever happens, happens. You're not allowed to do that. In addition, it's not a good idea to do that because there's a commentary that says, I don't have the notes with me, I believe it's the Ramban, Nachmanides says like this, that the verse tells us, don't hate your brother, which means your fellow. In your heart, don't carry a sin. What it means is like this. If you have a problem with someone else, somebody offended you, he didn't invite you to his wedding, whatever, okay? And you're bothered by it. And you're building this resentment, this anger, this hatred towards that person. Don't harbor it inside. Speak up. Go to the person and say, my friend, I was offended by what you did. I was hurt by what you said. What's the point? Why should he do it? Just be quiet. Because you're giving him a chance to fix the problem. He could also explain to you that you misunderstood, or he didn't know, or that invitation got lost in the mail. Don't take it so personal. How many fights, how many misunderstandings, right? It's just purely the misunderstanding. And people are offended and hurt. That's not what happened here. It was just, But if you don't say anything, then it gets stuck in you, in your heart. It festers, and then you start behaving in a certain way. Speak up, say something. Don't suppress it. But let's go back to the original idea. The idea of giving criticism, Torah views it as an obligation that we have for our fellow. It's part of our responsibility towards another man, human. And if not, then we carry a certain level of responsibility or of guilt towards that. Now, what does that mean? Should we walk along the street and every person we see, hey, yo, that's not okay, this is not okay? So Jewish authorities on Jewish law discuss this. If it's a person that you know, there's a chance they'll listen to you, then you have to tell them. Okay?
Isn't there always a chance that they will?
Yes, but let's say it's a complete stranger. I'll give you an example. We have to keep kosher, right?
Yeah.
No eating cheeseburgers. It's not allowed. Now, you're driving along Sheridan and Wilson, and there's McDonald's, and someone you know is about to walk in. Oh, sorry, someone that you don't know. But you know they're Jewish. And it's forbidden. So should you pull over and pull them aside and say, "Sir, Goldberg," right? That's not allowed. I'll look at you. And first of all, he doesn't know about kosher. Maybe he does, but he hasn't been doing it. It's a concept for him. Number two, he doesn't know you. He's probably really hungry also. And by you telling him that or starting to tell him off for going to McDonald's, chances of him listening are next to nothing. Chances of him never talking to somebody who has anything to say about Torah or Judaism is probably next to nothing. So you're not going to go and stop the guy from the bank. It's about to hold up a bank with a weapon and a mask over his face. You're not exactly supposed to go and try to stop him from robbing the bank. But if you have a close friend, a relative, someone that you know, a neighbor, and you know they're about to do something, they're angry and they're about to take revenge. Okay, they're not robbing banks. They're about to behave in a certain way that's inappropriate. You have a responsibility to say, "Listen, I really want to tell you, don't do it." They may or may not listen, but you tried. We're not saying walk around and tell everyone what to do with their life. But we all have friends, and we know sometimes people get upset or they have weaknesses. And it's our responsibility as a society to encourage one another, to help one another. It's extremely important to do so. And if there's a possibility that it'll work, you have to speak up. If not, then don't. But it's equally important to know how to give criticism. I want to share with you the following story. The fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Marash, two of his sons were playing a game. They were kids. One was 11, one was 9. Okay. At home, very often kids play house. One's the dad, one's the mom. They play house. Or they play school teacher and student, whatever. These two sons of the Rebbe, the fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe's sons, they were playing Rebbe and Chassid, Rebbe and disciple, Rebbe and follower. The older brother, Zalman Aaron, he was going to be the Rebbe. He put on a jacket and some kind of hat, sat down by a desk. And his brother, younger brother, Shalom Ber, was going to come and play the Chassid role. Knocks on the door, yeah. He says, "Rebbe, I want to come in. I need a tikkun." A tikkun means a correction. I made a mistake and I want a path. How could I fix what I've done wrong? So he says, "What did you do?" Let's hear. As well, on Shabbos, I'll just give a brief introduction. We're not allowed to do what's called boirer. You can't take the bad from the good on Shabbos. If you have a big pile of, let's say, shells and fruit, or garbage mixed in with good stuff, you can't take away the bad for the good. Take the good out of the bad, but you can't take the bad out of the good on Shabbos. Without getting into all the details, it's not allowed. He says, I was eating, let's say, nuts. Some kind of nuts. And now, in the code of Jewish law, you're allowed to eat nuts on Shabbos, even with the shell. Just be careful when you open it up, you're not taking away the shell, you're only taking the good from the bad. In the Alter Rebbe's code of Jewish law, which is, by the way, their ancestor, these two brothers, he also says it's allowed. But in the Siddur, the prayer book, he has a section about laws of Shabbos, which is really for the Chabad Hasidim. And he says he wants us to be more strict and don't shell those nuts on Shabbos. Don't do it. Because of Beir, they might take away the bad from the good. He says, I didn't know. I learned the code of Jewish law. I learned the other code of Jewish law. I didn't see in the Siddur, he says, I ate nuts on Shabbos. The brother says, you have to learn your tikkun. The way that you're going to correct this is to learn the laws of Shabbos really, really well from the Siddur. That's going to be your tikkun. Okay, the game was over. He left. His mother, their mother, Rebbetzin Rivka, very wise woman. She goes over to her son a few days later to Shalom Ber and says, "Nu, did you do what the Rebbe told you in the game? Did you learn the laws of Shabbos?" She's like, "No, he's not a real Rebbe." Wow. Why? Says a real Rebbe, before he gives a tikkun, before he tells you how to correct your mistake, he usually says, "Oy." Feels bad. He has empathy. He's bothered by it. He was like, "Do this, do that." It's not. By the way, the younger one became the Rebbe when he grew up. He became the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Rashab. You can't just go giving people criticism because you're right and they're wrong and you know them. If you care, if you have a love, if you mean well, I'm not here to show you that you're wrong, or I relish the opportunity to try to tell you how bad you are. If I truly love you and I truly care and I'm bothered by this mistake that you're about to make, when I tell you, you'll listen. So often the problem of criticism is not us, the receiver, it's the giver. They don't know how to give it, right? We say, today's kids or today's youth or today's society, can't take any criticism. They're spoiled, entitled, whatever else they say. They forget to say about who raised them, the ones that are saying that. But anyway, the concept here is that the people giving the criticism have to have a sense of felt love. And the person receiving the criticism has to feel that the person telling me off now means my good, and feels, they only want the best for me. Then there's a chance that it'll work. Otherwise, this is the answer why Moshe Rabbeinu waited 40 years to tell them off. Because you're going to come now and say, or the beginning, "Oh, you guys sinned. Why did he do this?" What are we going to say? "Yeah, Moshe, thanks. Maybe you get us into Israel. Maybe you solve some problems. Maybe you lead us. You can't help us, so you're criticizing us." Now that he led us in the desert for 40 years, won our battles with our enemies. He just conquered Sichon and Og, two giants, tremendous empires. They were actually the protectors for all the other nations. And he conquered them. And we're able to settle already in their land on some level. And he got us the man from heaven. And he dealt with water for us multiple times. He prayed to God to forgive us. All different things that he's done. And now he comes and says, "Guys, this behavior is unacceptable." We listen. It enters. I get it. You can't just come on a high horse just because you're right and the other person's wrong and expect them to listen. And by the way, this applies at every level. It's parents to children, it's teachers to students, it's spouses to one another. If you're going to come and just zero in on a problem, they have the sandwich mechanism, they call it, the sandwich theory or method. Let's say an employee. You want to give them criticism for coming late. So you call them in and you sandwich it. First you say, "We're very happy with your work. You've accomplished so much. You're doing a great job." Then you say, "If you would come on time, that would really make a difference, and we can't have this lateness going on." And then you sandwich the other side and you say that, you're working really good with the team and you're getting along with everybody and it's really good for morale. There's a chance they'll listen to you because the boss called them in, and instead of saying, "Yo, start coming on time," you said a nice thing. And then you put a criticism in the middle, and then you close it with a nice thing, then it works. And by the way, the same is for children, and the same is in every relationship. Criticism has to come in a way that the receiver feels that you care about me. It's coming with love. It's coming from a good place. Or else, you may as well not say it. It's not going to work. And just like we have a mitzvah to say something that will be heard, there's a mitzvah to say the things that won't be heard. And Moshe said, "I'm going to wait. I'm not going to give the criticism now." Bilam was a non-Jewish prophet, right? Who was hired by a wicked king, Balak, to curse the Jews. In the end, 3 different times, he gave us some of the greatest blessings ever. Okay? This curses never happened. We got some of the greatest blessings. So commentaries say, why is it that Moshe criticized us and Bilam blessed us? Take the enemy that hates the Jew, have him give the criticism, and Moshe will bless us. Why was it switched?
No one will listen.
Exactly. Very good. Nobody would listen. If you're going to come and Bilam comes rolls in and says, guys, you're doing this wrong, that wrong, that wrong. What are we going to say? Yeah, thank you. An enemy is talking bad about us. We're not going to change. We're going to spit it right out. It's not even going to enter. You have to have, and make sure everyone understood this. This is Torah's view of criticism. There are people that have to be criticized. And maybe in your life you have someone that you want to tell them, to change something. You want it to be effective, or you just want to show them they're wrong. If you want it to be effective, you got to do it with love, with empathy. They have to know and feel that love and empathy and care. Then there's a chance it'll work if it's spoken sincerely. There's a story about the third Vizhnitzer Rebbe, a very special Jew, who was very devoted to the well-being of his students, his disciples, the people that lived there. One day, it was his custom, every evening he would go for a walk. He would go for a stroll. He was a busy man, but he found time to go for a stroll. And as he was going, his attendant that would walk with him sees that this evening he's going somewhere else, not to the regular place. And he said, where's the Rebbe going? Oh, we're going to Chaim's house. Chaim? Yeah, Chaim the banker. Chaim the banker grew up in a observant home, very religious, went to Jewish day school, cheder, whatever they had there. But he left the whole Jewish practice. He joined the Maskilim, had an impact on him, the Enlightenment movement, and he threw everything away. He was Jewish, but he had no involvement. Obviously, once you're Jewish, you can't get out, but thankfully. But he had no involvement with anything else, any Jewish community. The Rebbe had no interaction with him, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe. It was strange, but they're going. And they come to this beautiful mansion, gorgeous, huge place. They go up the steps, and the attendant knocks on the door. And some servant opens up, and he sees the Vizhnitzer Rebbe is here. He says, wow, come on in. He calls his boss. And Chaim, the banker, comes down. He says, wow, what an honor. The Rebbe himself, again, they never had any interactions. Please come to my study. They go up 3 flights of stairs. He sits him down on a beautiful couch. And yes, Rebbe, how can I help? Nothing. The Rebbe doesn't say a word. He just sits there. Waits and waits and waits. I guess a little uncomfortable. 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It turns into 20 minutes. Then the Rebbe says, okay, thank you. He gets up and Chaim is like, Rebbe, please, what brings you here? I came to fulfill a mitzvah. Mitzvah? Which mitzvah? The mitzvah not to say the stuff that won't be heard. That won't be listened to. You got to say the stuff that people will listen to, and the stuff that they won't listen to, just keep quiet. So Rebbe, I'll listen. No, you're not gonna, I promise you. You tell me what you wanted to tell me. He couldn't. The guy's in his house for 25 minutes, and the Rebbe himself came, first time ever, and he's just sitting there quiet. What could he possibly want from me that he knows I'm not going to do? I give you my word. If you tell me what it is, I will do it. So the Rebbe says, okay. Sarah, she's a widow. Her husband recently passed away. She has 3 kids. They owe mortgage to your bank. Their house is mortgaged to your bank. She has no source of income. He was the only breadwinner. And she didn't pay her mortgage. And weeks turned into months. And they got 1 notice, and another notice, and a 3rd notice. And the house, heaven forbid, is going into auction tomorrow to be sold. The bank is taking away her house. And let me tell you, Chaim, that this woman has nowhere to go with her family and no money to pay. And I came to ask you to take care of that. He says, Rebbe, I don't own the bank. I'm the director of the bank, the chairman of the bank. I'm a banker. I don't own this bank. I can't just go into someone's document and say, okay, forget about the loan. I'll be fired. I said, I told you you're not going to listen. That's why I came here and got quiet. But Rebbe, it's not my loan. It's not my bank. I told you you're not going to listen. And the Rebbe left. When he left, this Chaim started to think, it really touched him. What can I do? The next morning he went to the bank, he found the file, and he took care of it. He paid it from his own pocket. He paid up the whole loan, so this widow with the orphans could have where to live. It's a beautiful story. It shows you that sometimes the way to deal with it is not to speak. Now, don't harbor a grudge. Don't build resentment. Speak it out, and do it out of love and sensitivity and empathy. Don't just come to the person and tell them what they've done, what they did wrong. But sometimes you gotta know that saying it is not going to work. And Moshe understood that very well. He knew that if I'm going to come today, the first decade, second decade, third decade, and try to get them, and I want to help them, right? They're not going to feel the love from me to them. They're going to misunderstand this whole message. Oh, you worshipped idols. Oh, you complained about Hashem. Oh, you mistrusted. Oh, you wanted to go back to Egypt. Oh, you said you don't want to go to Israel. All of these things, it's not going to work. Let's take a lesson from that. And in all of our interpersonal relationships, especially when it comes to criticism, make sure the other side knows and feels your love, your care, your empathy. When we do that, we'll have the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, which we're unfortunately commemorating the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash this Sunday. It's really Shabbos, but it's pushed off to Sunday because we can't fast on Shabbos. And with God's help, Mashiach will be here because we'll have love and getting along with one another and care and helping one another, which is really the cure for the terrible exile and suffering of the long Jewish exile of the history that we had. May it be speedily in our days. Thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the live chat, and be sure to subscribe and share, and look forward to seeing you, God willing, tomorrow for our next class. That was the first.
Because Instagram, Facebook is Instagram, so also doing bought them. Well,